Hi, welcome to Conflict Story, where we bring you the best and most fascinating stories just for you. Let's dive right into one of those stories. It begins like this.
They smashed my grandpa's arm on the front steps like they were taking out the trash. That's how this started. No warm-up, no polite knock. Two men in dark jackets with shiny compliance patches, and a blonde woman with a tablet, blue nails, and a smile that said she enjoyed this. The taller guy yanked my grandpa Frank by the wrist. I heard the crack. He screamed. My stomach flipped like a bad carnival ride. Homeowner Association inspection, the blonde said into her phone camera. Non-compliance, hostile resident. I'm Tom Harper, 55. Back that day I was on my knees fixing a loose board on the porch. Old bones, old tools, older house. I stood up so fast my back lit up in sparks. "Get off my property," I said. My voice sounded calm. Inside, I was flooding. The short guy raised a folder like it was a badge. No seal, no signatures, just boxes and arrows. "You're in arrears," he said. "We're tagging violations and seizing non-conforming items." They kicked our garden arch. It snapped clean and fell into the hydrangeas Frank loved. The blonde kept filming. "Sir, you're obstructing," she said, sweet voice, mean eyes. I reached for my phone. The short one slapped it out of my hand. It clattered across the porch. "Try calling 911, he said, "and we double your fines." That's when our old shepherd barked, and the tall guy flashed a tiny spray. The dog yelped, stumbled back. I felt heat rise up my neck. I wanted to swing. I wanted to break something back. Here's what I did instead. I stared the blonde down and said, "Name, full name." She smirked. "Karen," she said, "write it down." She tilted her chin like she was queen of the cul-de-sac. A real patrol car rolled up faster than I expected. Blue lights in the glass windows. I thought, okay, sanity. But the officer looked at their jackets, at their forms, then at me, like it was 50-50. The paramedics took Frank. He was pale, jaw tight, eyes locked on mine. As they loaded him, he grabbed my sleeve. "Don't open the garage," he whispered. "Promise me." Then he was gone. Funny thing is, I wanted to chase that ambulance. Instead, I stood in the dusk and listened to the house breathe, boards settle, wind scratch the screens. Karen planted a notice on our door and filmed me reading it like I was the villain of her show. Then they left, tires crunching gravel that didn't need this day. Let me back up. Frank's my grandfather. Raised me more than my dad did. He's steady, quiet, moves like a man who learned to make himself small. Lately, he'd been closing blinds in the middle of the day. He changed routes on walks. He never answered unknown numbers. I once found a business card in his wallet that didn't fit him. U.S. Marshals. I stuffed the question down. We Harper men are good at that, pushing truth into a drawer and sitting on it. I drove straight to the real homeowner association office the next morning. Beige walls, smell of coffee that's been reheated 4 times. A guy named Jonathan at the desk, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened. He clicked around his monitor, then looked up at me like I'd asked for a unicorn. "We didn't schedule inspections yesterday," he said. "We don't have a Karen on staff, and we don't do seizure of property." His eyebrows did a little dance that said, "Who did you tick off?" So, the badges were fake, the forms were fake, the pain was real. I thanked him and left with my jaw locked. What would you do if the law in your yard turned out to be a costume? Here's what happened next. I stopped by the hospital with a coffee. Frank wouldn't drink. His arm was wrapped. He looked at me like a man who wanted to say 10 things and only had 1 breath left. "Tom," he said, voice low, "listen, I'm under federal protection. Old case. They promised quiet. If they come again, let them take what they want, just not the garage. Don't open the garage." He closed his eyes. The heart monitor clicked soft like a clock in a long hallway. "Under protection," I said. "By who?" He didn't answer. His mouth twitched. That's when I realized there was a whole part of him I never knew. Have you ever found a door in your own house you didn't know was there? I tried the number on that Marshall's card. On the third ring, a woman answered, steady voice. Marshall's service. I gave my name, my address. She asked me to repeat it, then asked if anyone else was with me. Something in her tone felt too eager, like a fisherman with a twitching line. I hung up. Paranoia? Maybe. But the hair on my arm stood up. I smashed my call history and tossed the phone on the passenger seat. Breathe, I told myself. It didn't help. When I got home, Karen was back. Daylight, new jacket, same smirk. She had a different guy with her, lean, jumpy eyes. Repeat inspection, she sang. We can resolve this today. Small payment, quick walkthrough, garage pictures for our records, and we're done. No, I said, steady. I held up my phone. I'll be filming too. She smiled. That's your right, but your non-cooperation doubles fines. Our handyman neighbor, Miguel, leaned on the fence. He's a good man, tries to keep his head down. He nodded to me. Just sign, Tom. It'll be faster, he whispered. He looked away, like he didn't want to be seen talking to a sinking ship. I didn't sign. I stalled. Back gate's stuck, I said. Walk around. I'll show you what we've got. In the yard, their eyes didn't care about the yard. They scanned the garage door sensors, the cable running to the motion light, the old steel rack with a stamped number on the side. They were shopping, not checking. That night, I sat in the laundry room with the light off. Washer smell and old cedar shelves. Frank's cardigan on the hook, sleeves empty and small. I could hear every tick of the kitchen clock and every creak of the house I've fixed 100 times. I felt like a kid again, hiding in a closet during a storm, counting between thunder and lightning. I'm late again, I told the dark. My wife, Liz, she's gone now, used to say, you always fix things the day after they break. I hated that she was right. Here's the kicker. Next afternoon, a real patrol car rolled up with the fake officers. Karen waved documents. She was louder. The new guy called me aggressive. The officer asked me to step outside. He didn't cuff me. He didn't need to. Pulling me out in front of neighbors did the job. The tow truck hooked our generator and air compressor. Noise violations, Karen said. Her camera loved every second. I called that Marshall's number again. This time a man answered. Harper, stay on the line, he said. The call dropped. A text came right after. Do not open the garage. Leave the house. Leave the house? Where would I go? This was my place, my porch, my yard, my dog, my tools, my life. Across the street, curtains moved. In the driveway, Miguel stared at his shoes. Karen took a phone call. Her face changed. She touched her earpiece and flicked her wrist. Wrap it up, she told her guys. They left fast, dust hanging. Notice flapping on our door like a flag of surrender. Miguel walked over the next morning, holding his cap. Tom, he said, not looking at me, they offered me a contract. They said if I help them get in your yard, I'll get steady work. They asked for my ladder. His eyes glistened. I said yes. I'm sorry. I didn't think. I stood there with the taste of pennies in my mouth. I didn't yell. I just felt old. Thanks for telling me, I said. He nodded like a man walking into a headwind and went back to his truck. What would you do if the only friendly face on your street sold you out for a paycheck? Here's what I discovered next. They weren't brave. They were bold because they were hidden. Take the mask away and bullies shrink. I couldn't fight with fists. That would play into their show. I needed a new show. Mine. I still had gear from the years I did sound gigs in bars and school gyms. Old mics, a cheap recorder, a box of stage lights I never returned. I spent the afternoon in the attic, wires braided through insulation, dust in my throat. I rewired our motion lights. I ran a cable from the living room camera to a battered cassette recorder with fresh batteries. I stuck a tiny tracker inside a metal jewelry box and set it on the porch like a baited hook. The box was empty, just old bolts and a note I typed on my wife's ancient label maker, Smile. I took a breath and looked at what I'd made. It wasn't pretty, but it was a plan. Did you ever build something you hoped would hold, even if it looked like a pile of junk? When night fell, the neighborhood went quiet in that way only suburban streets do. Sprinklers, a TV 2 houses down, a wind chime out of tune. Headlights slid slow along the curb. 2 figures in dark jackets slipped through the side gate. Gloves, soft shoes. No Karen this time. They moved like men who'd done this many times. They went straight for the box. The lean one popped it with a flat tool. He frowned at the bolts. He read the label. His friend snorted. "Cute," he said. That's when I flipped the switch inside my pocket. Every floodlight on my property snapped on, not just on my lawn, on the white garage doors across the street, on the vinyl siding to the left, on the windows to the right. I had taped magnifier lenses to a few lights, so the beams threw big blown-up faces on every surface like a drive-in movie. Their features stretched across the neighborhood, eyes, nose, that patchy beard, huge and bright and inescapable. The lean one froze. The other pulled his hood up. "Turn it off," he hissed. But you can't argue with light. That's the thing. It doesn't debate, it shows. "Take the mask off," I said, stepping out. My heart beat like a drum under a wet tarp. "Say your name." They backed toward the gate. "Call your boss," I said. "Tell her the show's over." Headlights turned into our street, not patrol lights, no siren. A silver sedan rolled up and stopped by the curb. A woman stepped out in a plain jacket and jeans, no badge out, no gun on display. She looked like someone's Sunday aunt. But the way she scanned the scene, the way her hand hovered near her hip, it told me everything. "Tom Harper?" she said, calm voice. "We spoke." I didn't remember her voice. I didn't remember speaking. My tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. She glanced at the giant faces on the house across the street, then back at me. "Clever," she said. "Turn the lights off." I hesitated. She held my eyes. There was a long second there, full of all the wrong choices I could make. Then I hit the switch. Darkness dropped like a curtain. She walked past me, nodded toward the 2 men, and said, "You're done." 2 more shadows stepped out from the sidewalk and moved them into the sedan without a word. No cuffs, no shouting, just hands and posture and quiet authority. "Who are you?" I asked. "Quinn," she said, "U.S. Marshals." She lowered her voice. "Your grandfather is a witness on a case involving fake homeowner associations contractors from years back. These are the leftovers. We needed them moving to get to the one who pays them." I felt my jaw slacken. "You could have stopped them," I said. It came out harsher than I meant. "We needed them to think they were safe," she said. "Tonight they weren't." She glanced toward Miguel's truck, parked across our driveway. "You have a neighbor who wrestles with his conscience," she added. "He did the right thing when it counted." Miguel, God help him, had driven his pickup across the mouth of the cul-de-sac when the sedan arrived, blocked Karen's exit if she'd shown. Big move for a man who hates waves. He didn't look at me. He didn't need a thank you. He needed sleep. Agent Quinn leaned close. "Frank is being moved to a different hospital under a new name," she said. "He'll be safe. You won't hear about it. That's the point." I swallowed a stone. "Can I see him?" I asked. She shook her head. "Not tonight." "Do I get closure?" I said, and hated how small that sounded. "No," she said, not unkind. "You get quiet." She handed me a form, non-disclosure. One sentence mattered, "Don't talk." She got back in the sedan. The street swallowed the car. I stood on the porch watching the dark settle again, like dust. My metal box sat on the steps, lid open, label crooked. Somewhere, a dog barked twice and went back to sleep. I picked up a piece of the broken garden arch. Frank loved that arch. He'd trained the vine over it like a patient teacher. I set the wood aside and propped a cardboard sign on the railing with a thick black marker. Inspections by appointment. I wasn't celebrating. I wasn't even smiling. My house felt emptier than it had that morning. But something in me had shifted. I stopped waiting for someone to fix it for me. I stopped thinking light would come from somewhere else. And then my phone buzzed. Unknown number, a photo popped up. Karen's face pale in a dashboard glow. A message, "This isn't over." I looked at the picture, I looked at my dark lawn. "Neither am I," I said to the night. Have you ever stood on your porch and felt the whole neighborhood breathe like it finally saw you? If you've got thoughts so far, drop a comment. Tell me, at what point would you have walked away? Karen's text sat on my screen like a thumbprint on glass. I slept 2 hours, sitting up in a chair, boots on. When the sun came up, the house felt wrong, too quiet. No kettle whistle, no Frank humming over the paper. Just the ache in my back and the dog sticking close like a shadow that breathes. First thing, Miguel knocked. He looked like he hadn't slept either. "They called me last night," he said, voice low. "Told me to park my truck and mind my business or I'd lose every job in 3 neighborhoods. He lifted his hands. "I'm done with them, Tom. If they come today, I'm here." I nodded. "You were there when it counted," I said. He flinched anyway. Guilt is a heavy coat, even in summer. Here's what happened next. I checked my rig. The lights were reset. The recorder was still humming, red LED like a heartbeat. The metal box, bait, sat back on the steps, empty, lid open. I swapped in a fresh tracker. I taped a second little note inside. "Not this time." Then I drove to the hardware store and bought 2 cheap motion sensors and a handful of hose clamps. Simple parts. Simple plan. The fancy stuff is for people with budgets and time. I had neither. On the way back, I pulled into the hospital lot out of habit. I knew Frank wouldn't be there. Still, my hands turned the wheel. Old men in wheelchairs rolled past my truck. A nurse pushed a mop like she was clearing a path. I sat for a minute and stared through the windshield at my own reflection. "You told me not to open the garage," I said out loud. "I heard you." Let me back up. When Liz got sick, I learned something about loss. It doesn't come like a thief at night. It parks in your driveway and honks until you open the door. You think you're ready, you're not. That morning, I felt that honk in my bones. If you felt that, you know what I mean. I got home and found Karen's calling card nailed to my fence, literally. A fresh notice, bright white against old wood. "Final inspection," it said in bold. 3 p.m. She wanted a show. I decided to give her one, but not the one she planned. Here's the setup. I wired the motion sensors to the floodlights again, but this time I added 2 little projectors I found in a box from my sound days. Not great quality, but good enough for faces. I clipped magnifying lenses in front of them, clumsy and ugly, like braces on a mouth. I ran an audio line from the living room camera straight down to the old camcorder in the basement. No Wi-Fi, no cloud, just wire. If they jammed anything, they'd be jamming air. Inside the garage, I pulled the old steel rack 2 inches forward. That stamp number they kept eyeballing, I angled a flashlight so it would shine across it, bright as a road sign. I wanted their eyes to stick to it, like gum on a shoe. At 2:45, the street started to buzz. You know that hum before a storm? Lawnmowers cut off. A screen door creaked. A sprinkler clicked. The air got tight. They came at 3:10. Karen first, hair pulled back tight, sunglasses hiding everything but the smile. 2 men I hadn't seen before flanked her. Same jackets, same stiff posture, new muscle. She didn't look at me. She filmed the house instead. Slow pan, like she was making a commercial. "Final inspection," she said, as if she owned my porch. "Resolve this, and we're finished. Be reasonable, Tom." "You break my grandfather's arm and want reasonable?" I said. "Here's reasonable. No garage." Her grin sharpened. "Then we proceed with the exterior violations," she said. She nodded, and one of the new guys headed toward the side yard. He carried bolt cutters. Subtlety is not their gift. Miguel stepped off the curb and parked his truck across the end of the driveway again. Delivery, he said, deadpan, like he'd been doing deliveries his whole life. It wasn't a barricade. It was a reminder. He was watching. Karen's eyes flicked to the truck, then back to me. You're collecting strays, she said. Cute. Here's the twist. I moved aside and gestured toward the side gate. Back gate's still sticky, I said. Same line as yesterday. Be my guest. I kept my camera up, nice and obvious. They hate obvious cameras. They forget about the ones that don't blink. They went past me like I was a lamppost. Their gaze hit the garage rack from 20 feet away. They didn't care about the leaves in the gutter or the paint on the trim. They wanted that number. They wanted whatever lived behind that door. The shorter one spotted the metal box bait on the step and laughed. This guy, he said. You see this? Karen didn't look. She had something else in mind. She lifted her phone, pretended to scroll, then said loud enough for my porch to hear. We have permission to enter the garage. Recorded yesterday. Resident consented. Play it, I said. She didn't. She smiled like the cat that ate the canary and said, Non-compliance noted. That's when the new guy at the gate yanked his bolt cutters wide and drove them into the latch. I flipped the first switch in my pocket. The yard exploded in light. Projected faces leaped onto siding again, big and warped and inescapable. The two men froze, hands still wrapped around the cutters. Karen's sunglasses mirrored their own ghosts back at them, huge and stupid. Smile, I said. You're on every wall in my life. Somewhere on the street, a screen snapped shut. Someone cussed under their breath. My dog barked once. It sounded like a laugh. Karen dropped the sunglasses to the tip of her nose and stared at the faces. Something else flickered across her features then. Calculation. She looked down the street, then back at me. Turn that off, she said, calm. I say please, I said. Please, she said, not missing a beat. Then softly, you don't know who you're poking. Maybe not, I said, but I know what you look like when the lights are on. Here's what you don't know until it happens to you. Bullies don't fear laws. They fear attention they can't control. She took a breath. Boys, she said to the cutters, wrap, we'll revisit. She turned like she was done. That's when a different set of headlights slid into the street. Same silver sedan. No flash. No show. Agent Quinn stepped out, hair pulled back today, plain jacket zipped. She didn't look at me. She looked at Karen like she'd been studying for this test all semester. Hi, Karen, she said, voice so normal it was almost kind. Walk with me. Karen's smile thinned. Do I know you? You know me now, Quinn said. They walked to the curb. I couldn't hear their words, just their bodies doing the math. The cutters suddenly found something very interesting in their shoes. Quinn turned back toward me. Turn the lights off, Tom, she said. We're done with those. Another second of choices. Another click in my pocket. The faces vanished. The yard went back to late afternoon. Too bright, too normal. Quinn's shadows, two men I hadn't noticed, moved like smoke and guided the cutters down the sidewalk. No cuffs again, no scenes. Just a polite eviction from my life. Karen watched them go. Her jaw worked. When she looked at me again, something had drained out of her. Not power, color. You think this scares me? She said. I think you don't like the light, I said. She took a step closer, lowered her voice. You want to feel safe? Sell the house. I'll make it painless. Painless for who? I asked. She tilted her head. We're the only ones who can help you, she said. No one else is coming. She left it at that, slid into a different SUV than yesterday, and rolled away. No rush, just confidence with a hairline crack. Here's what I discovered next. Quinn didn't keep me in suspense. She stood on my porch and got right to it. We're moving now because we have to, she said. You bought us the time we needed. Time for what? To find the money, she said. They don't do this for kicks. They do it for payouts and leverage. We traced 2 of their masks. We need the face behind the face. Frank, I said. He's safe, she said. You won't see him until this is cold. That's how it has to be. I signed what she put in front of me. I didn't read every line. I knew what it said. Keep your mouth shut. Protect what matters. We shook hands like adults who understand limits. After she left, the street felt weirdly bright, like someone had lifted the lid off the day. Miguel shuffled over with a wooden arch balanced on his shoulder. It wasn't fancy, it was sturdy. I built this last night, he said softly. For Frank, no charge. I swallowed hard. He'll see it, I said. One day. We set it up together in the same dirt the first one had lived in. The dog sniffed it and wagged like it was a friend back from a trip. Have you ever fixed a small thing because the big thing can't be fixed yet? That's what we did. If you've been in that spot, tell me, how did you hold it together? Night fell. Quiet again. Too quiet. I drank tea Frank wouldn't have liked and stood by the window. I didn't want to sleep. Sleep felt like an invitation. At 1:16 a.m., the tracker pinged on my phone. The metal box bait had moved. The dot hopped 2 houses down, then around the corner. Not Karen's SUV, something smaller. Someone grabbed my decoy on their way out, because thieves can't help themselves. Greed is a leash. I pulled on my jacket, slipped out the back, and took the alley. Miguel's porch light blinked twice. I glanced up. He tapped his temple with 2 fingers and pointed toward the cul-de-sac entrance. A silent, I see you, I got you. The dot stopped at a ranch house with a 2-car garage and a rock garden that looked like a catalog. The garage door was cracked. Inside, I saw shelves, moving blankets, plastic tubs, and a metal case on a workbench that looked like it belonged in a movie. Their stash. I didn't step inside. I didn't touch a thing. I slid my projectors from my bag like a magician who only knows one trick. I set them on the driveway, angled up at the garage door, and waited until the motion sensor turned the inside light on full. Then I hit play. The door became a screen. Their faces from my yard, big, ugly, unblinking, splashed across that neat white panel. I added the note from my label maker at the bottom like a subtitle, Smile. The garage went still. I heard a muffled, "What the?" Then feet. 2 silhouettes froze in the gap. One reached for the door pull. I stepped back into the shadow of a maple, hands open, voice low. Don't run, I said. Walk out, hands where I can see them. Then go sit on your curb like you're waiting for a bus. The one on the right bolted anyway. He hit the side yard and ate a rake handle in the dark. He yelped. His partner hissed at him, "Idiot!" And they both stumbled into the glow of their own worst photo. I didn't chase. I didn't need to. I filmed 30 seconds. Enough. Then I packed the projectors, slid back into the alley, and walked home with my heart trying to win a race it didn't sign up for. You might be thinking, why not call the police? Fair. Here's why. The usual game plays into their show. They know how to cry foul on camera. They feed on it. I wanted them to spend a night not trusting their own garage. I wanted them to argue. People like that break faster under silence than noise. At dawn, the gravel crunched again. Different car. Same silver. Agent Quinn stepped out with a look that said she hadn't slept either. She didn't ask how I knew. She just said, "It's enough," and headed for the corner house with 2 of her shadows. No sirens, no neighbors leaning on fences. Just doors closing quietly and a sedan leaving like a ghost. By noon, the street felt empty. No notices, no cameras, just wind and a blue jay that was mad at everything. I sat on the porch with a Sharpie and a piece of cardboard and wrote what I'd wanted to write since day one. Inspections by appointment. I hung it on the rail, crooked and honest. Here's the part you won't like, but it's true. There was no parade, no applause, no handshakes from the city. Frank didn't walk up the path, smiling under the new arch. The house still held his cardigan on a hook and his breath in its corners. Karen didn't get hauled off in cuffs while someone read her rights. That would be neat? Life isn't neat. What I got was a text at 4 p.m. No name, just, "He's safe." I knew who that was. I stared at it until the words blurred, then put the phone face down and cried in a way I hadn't since Liz. Around 6, a truck eased to the curb. Not Miguel. A guy I didn't know hopped out, wearing the same dark jacket as the others, but his sleeves were rolled up and his hands were empty. He set a small box on my step and backed off like it might explode. "What's that?" I asked. "A return," he said, eyes on his boots. "From her." He didn't say Karen. He didn't have to. He got back in the truck and left fast. I opened the box. Inside, our garden arch bolt I had used in the bait, my old tracker, a roll of fake notices tied with twine, and a note on a scrap of printing paper, handwriting too neat. "Consider this closed," it said, "for both of us." I laughed once, sharp. "Sure," I said to the empty street, "until you need another house." I took the tracker out and dropped it in my pocket. I kept the notices, not as trophies, as warnings. Have you ever won something and still felt like you left skin on the road? That's how it was. If you've been there, tell me. How did you make peace with it? That night, I sat on the porch under the new arch and listened to the neighborhood breathe. It sounded different. Not safe, not yet, but awake. People don't unsee faces that big on their siding. They don't forget a street turned into a movie screen. The next time someone in a fancy jacket knocks, they'll look twice. That matters. I'm not a hero. I'm a man who got tired of fixing things the day after they break. I used what I had: lights, wire, a stubborn streak I got from a man who taught me to keep promises. "Don't open the garage," he said. I didn't. I opened something else instead. If this hit you, let me know. Drop a comment. Tell me the moment you'd have fought or the moment you'd have walked. And if someone in a compliance jacket shows up at your door, do me a favor. Ask for their full name, then turn on every light you own. Because here's the truth I learned. Power hates daylight. And sometimes the only way out is to make your street so bright, the wolves have nowhere to hide.